Battlefield 4 has seen huge amounts of new players join the game, not just on PC but on old-gen consoles like the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 as well. With many big YouTubers and myself highly anticipating the new release of Battlefield 4 is the perfect training ground for a modern day shooter. In this video, I'll be covering the top differences within Battlefield 4 between the old-gen consoles and PC players. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you're new to the channel, my name's Ace Exodus. Please consider subscribing and tap that like button, it really helps me out a lot. Without further ado, let's get into the video. The first key difference is obviously the map size. I'm using Operation Locker as an example. There's only 3 flags to capture, whereas on PC there are 5 flags to capture. If you're wondering why that is, this is because on old gen consoles like the PlayStation 3 there are only 12 players on each team with 24 players in total, but on PC and new gen consoles there are 24 players per team, which is 48 in total. This does make sense, as on PlayStation 3 with there only being 24 players, it would be quite difficult and the game would become unbalanced if we had to capture 5 flags instead of the 3. The reduced amount of flags is purely for balancing reasons. Less amount of players on the game equals less map size and less flags need to be captured, if that makes sense. That's the first key difference. The next big difference you can notice between PC players and old gen consoles is that PC players have an increased field of view, something that old gen consoles can't do. So in this picture shows a old gen console field of view, which is, I believe, the standard 80, whereas on PC players and new gen consoles you can adjust your field of view, making it a lot easier to see targets around you. So you can see the door on the left. You have an increased literally field of view, making it easier to spot enemies and having better spatial awareness. So you can see on this screenshot there's a picture of the video settings showing all the things that you can change, whereas on the PlayStation 3 video settings there's hardly anything to change. So that's one big downside on playing on the PlayStation 3 compared to PC players. PC players can essentially see more at one time. Right, here's a perfect example of the disadvantages you get on not being able to adjust your field of view. That guy killed me from the right hand side, but with increased view I may have been able to spot him and react to him quicker. Another really big difference that needs to be touched on is the difference between controllers and mouse and keyboard players. So we're going to start with the controller players and how they're different to the mouse and keyboard. So imagine you've got a controller in your hand and you're playing Battlefield 4. The left stick's for aiming and the right stick's for movement. If you think about the fundamentals of controller players, they're using both the top of their thumbs to essentially aim and look around. So I'm using my left thumb in this gameplay to aim around and trying to snap onto targets. This is completely different to mouse and keyboard, because PC players are using their entire hand holding a mouse on a mouse pad and are able to aim with higher accuracy due to, I would say, the level of contact that they have with the actual control. So for console players they've only got a stick to aim, and that's why aim assist is used, because it can be quite difficult to get that high level of accuracy, whereas PC players use obviously a mouse and keyboard, and the mouse alone gives them a higher level of accuracy due to the amount of movement and the speed that they can move their their mouse and just the level of all-round accuracy. It's quite difficult to explain. I hope you guys can kind of understand that. And yeah, it makes it quite difficult for console players to live up to the level of accuracy. Not to say that you can't do it in time, you can, but if you're a new Battlefield player on the console specifically, I would encourage you start with a low sensitivity, not too low. I mean, I used to play on 22 sensitivity and now I'm up to 72 sensitivity. So it's really getting used to just the general controls. But on PC players, I mean, if you guys watch other Battlefield 4 videos and you compare it to mine, the level of accuracy with these guys is so good, to the point where a lot of people believe that they're cheating, and they're really not. And this is another thing that I need to touch on, is if you're playing on console, and specifically the PlayStation 3, and you are seeing these players that are clearly better than you and are abusing movement, and they've got an amazing accuracy with really high recoil weapons like the AUK, and they're just dominating you on maps like this, like Locker. Either they're a really good player and they've played on console for ages, or they're actually playing on an old console using the mouse and keyboard. I have actually seen this before, where I've played with someone online and I've gone into a private lobby with them and they have just absolutely abused me. I couldn't touch them, they were just too good, and I asked him if he was using mouse and keyboard and he said he was. So be aware of people still using mouse and keyboard on console, because it is, I would say, the preferred way of playing because of the increased accuracy. So don't be deterred from PC players. They are accuracy wise better, but I think playing on the PlayStation 3 and on consoles gives it a bit more of a level playing field for the more casual players that don't want to sweat their arse off. So the last difference that I seem to see when playing on old gen consoles is the amount of vehicles, or the type of vehicles, that spawn on certain maps. So a really good example of this is Parasol Storm. You load into a game Parasol Storm on PC, there would be 2 jets, I believe, whereas if you load into the same game on Battlefield 3, there are no jets. Again, it has to do with the number of players on a server and the limit that you have on the old gen consoles. The developers are not going to put in extra vehicles the way they do on PC for old gen consoles, because there's not enough players in the servers and the balancing would be thrown off, because there'd be essentially too many vehicles for too little amount of players. So that's another thing. The increased amount of flags on some but not all maps, the increased amount of vehicles, the increased amount of players on each team and in the server. Hope you found this video somewhat helpful. Make sure you comment down below your thoughts, and if you guys see any other differences. It's been Ace Exodus. Peace.